Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have Christian Dryden from the Ritualists, and I got a chance to sit down with him and talk about his new album that is coming out in April. It's called Too Pure to Cure. Got a chance to listen to it a couple of times ahead of the interview, and it's pretty good stuff. I think you'll enjoy. I recommend checking that out. It's going to come out on April 22nd. So we're going to get to my interview with Christian here in just a moment. Before we do, catch you up a little bit on what's going on in my world, which involves me having to dive into what's going on in my world. Okay. I'm like, what's going on, really? Well, I had a trip with my kids last week, which was pretty fun. I took a couple of days away and they had the week off of school. So I took them to the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, I think it is, or Santa Clara, around there. And I'd been there as a kid. When I checked with my mom or talked with my mom about it, and we were talking to my son about it, she says I was one when her and my dad took me, which doesn't jive on several levels. First of all, I just moved to California when I was one, so I don't know many events that they're doing. Second, I have memories of the Winchester Mystery House and having been there, which I probably wouldn't at the ripe age of one. And I just kind of trust my remembering of timing a little bit better. So I would guess I was about 10 and that I went with my mom and sister. Yeah, it feels a little off in terms of the timing that we went, but who knows? So I took my two kids there, and it was enjoyable. They had a good time. They had never been there, didn't know of its existence, and we took a tour and got to go to all the different rooms and see the staircases that led to nowhere, and hear the stories of Sarah, the woman who lived there and built and built and built on that house until she died, and it was a fun experience. And we brought our dog Navy on the trip, and took her to Santa Cruz, which is where we were staying. We stayed right on the beach, right next to the boardwalk, and it was kind of the off season, which was cool to get to stay on the beach, really, because I don't think I'd be able to afford that hotel. It wasn't a super fancy hotel, but the location was prime location, and it just warmed up to a great temperature where it turned into spring pretty much overnight from the rain that we were having right beforehand. And so I got to let my dog run around on the beach, and the kids play around a bit, and took my son to the arcade. Even though none of the rides were running or anything, we did spend a little bit of time in the arcade. um, we also went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium and have family that is involved in the aquarium. So they took us they got us, you know, to be able to park in the staff parking lot. We got a private tour where we got to pet a jellyfish and feed these like jumping fish that were jumping around and everything, and learn about a lot of the other areas of the aquarium as well, and have a nice lunch. That was a lot of fun. It was just a really enjoyable getaway that I needed because I've been stressing a lot and having a lot going on. That's just like exhausting. I've been feeling pretty exhausted. And so to just get away, not even go far, but to get away for a couple of days was enjoyable. I have a couple of trips coming up that I'm also looking forward to. I'm planning on taking my son to LA to see AC/DC in April, which is a lot of fun. I hope he starts getting into concerts and stuff because I'm trying to kind of give him those experiences that I didn't really get at his age, and a chance for an 11-year-old boy to see AC/DC, maybe not in their prime, but at all, and play these hits for the only chance that he'll ever have to do that is a pretty incredible opportunity. I don't think fully sees the value in it yet, but it's something he'll be able to tell people later in life that hey, my dad took me to see AC/DC, and uh, and and for me, I'm stoked to be able to see them as well because I've never gotten a chance to see them live, and and so that should be a lot of fun. And then in July, going to hit Red Rocks to see Andrew McMahon's three bands, Something Corporate, Jackson Anakin, and Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, play this like super show where he has three pianos and cycles through all these songs from his career. And it's going to be this really cool experience. And I'm just planning everything around it that I want to do as well to make the trip really memorable and enjoy myself. It's going to be a solo trip, so I'm going to get some time to kind of see part of the country that I haven't. Might even make it a little bit of a road trip. We just got to see, but it's about a 17-hour drive there. And I'm trying to see kind of, okay, what's the best way to go. I was talking to someone I know and about who does more road trips and about kind of where I'd want to stop and how what I want to incorporate into the trip, that sort of thing. So I got those things coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. I had planned to incorporate some of Ben Gibbard's performance from his show at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco this week, which I was planning to go to. I had a ticket and everything, and I was just exhausted that day. And then I got an email from the venue about how they're moving seats around, and I might not be seated in the section that they gave that I bought a ticket for, but I could get a refund on the ticket. And I was like, man, it'd be cool to see Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service live. But I could use the night off right now and just wanted to have a beer with a buddy instead. And no regrets on that, I'll tell you that. So it was it all worked out for the best. And so no footage from that concert because I wasn't there, but there will be other shows. And I'm going to see Eric Hutchinson in a couple weeks with my son at Sweetwater in Mill Valley. We've gone to a show there before, and my son really enjoyed it. So we're gonna do it again. All right, so that's kind of what's going on in my world. And we have the Ritualists on the program, so I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and bring Christian Dryden in on the program. How are you doing today, Christian?
Doing all right. Once I got my internet sorted out, so
Yeah, after all the internet problems, we're all good.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what matters. That's what matters. Very cool. Well, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. We got a lot to talk about. A new album coming out, and but I like to dive in, earlier than the new stuff. I like to start kind of back at the beginning when we can, and kind of hear a
Okay.
little bit about your story in terms of what your parents were listening to when you were growing up, what early influences you had, that sort of thing. So I know your parents weren't musical themselves, right?
No, no. Um,
Hmm.
my grandmother used to sing, for fun at special occasions and events, but she was known to have a good voice. But outside of that, no one in my family is musical at all.
Yeah. So where did that interest come from for you then?
I mean, I have to say I was really born with it. I mean, I come from a family of like football coaches and Marines, and not really anyone who's very artsy. So
Yep.
it was really I was really an anomaly, a black sheep of sorts. I did have older sisters who introduced me to a lot of music. And that was really my first experience hearing, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and, 80s new wave stuff and metal. So that was really my first experience with rock and roll music
Yeah.
through my
What
sister.
what do you make about the final Black Sabbath concert coming up?
Well, I mean, I love Black Sabbath, but
Yeah.
I don't know that Ozzy is really in a condition to do much of anything, and it may be very sad.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of names on that bill that are just like, you know, rocking. But I saw Ozzy most recently. I think at the in rock and roll induction ceremony or something, and where Jack Black was tributing him, and he just didn't seem like he was doing well. You know.
Yeah, I mean, all the recent photos I've seen of him, he can't even walk.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he's going to sing, but
Yeah.
Tony Iommi will be great, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
that, and Geezer.
yeah. Have you had a chance to see Ozzy live ever?
I have. I actually saw one of the Sabbath reunion shows. One of the last ones that they did. They did not have Bill Ward on drums, which was really disappointing to me. But they sounded great, and I mean Tony Iommi was incredible, and I think he had been diagnosed with cancer not long before the string of shows I saw, and I was really impressed with his the way he looked and he sounded, and Ozzy sounded really good. So I mean, if they do something similar to that, maybe it'll be worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen Ozzy and I've seen Sabbath at Oz both play Ozfests in years past, and
Oh,
I
cool.
mean, yeah, put on. I mean, really great show. I also I have a picture of me and my daughter. We just talk about Ozzy all the time. No. I have a picture of me and my daughter and Ozzy at a book signing he did when my daughter was like 4 or 2, so like 10 years ago or something too. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
but 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 back to you. So so I know you kind of also like around 3 or 4 kind of started to have these performing inclinations of like enjoying having an audience and everything. Tell me kind of about the your early memories of doing that, or what you've been
Yeah,
told
I
anyway.
mean, that's funny. Yes, I would perform in front of the family, um, at like, family dinner gatherings where my grandparents would be there, and it started with like sort of miming, I guess, lip syncing, and then I just started to try to sing, and one thing led to another, and I was introduced to a drum set through a sister's boyfriend, and I got behind the drum set, and I remember first time hitting those sticks to the hi hat, and it just sounded like magical. And drums became my first instrument, and I was like a singing drummer for a while, um, and that really wasn't cool. So I was like, let me grab the next most rhythmic element in a rock and roll act, and we'll go from there. And so it was the bass. And so most of the ritualist stuff I actually write on the bass. I sing and I write on the bass guitar, which I don't think is very common for bands,
Yeah,
having them be written off a bass line or whatever.
for sure, for sure. How long were you playing the drums before you switched over?
High school. So by the time I was a senior in high school, it got to be okay, get out from behind the drum set. But it was fun.
Yeah, and you were in bands in high school too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, tell me about those bands, those early bands that you were in.
Well, it was great. It was a great experience because I played with basically anyone who would be willing to just jam with me, and which exposed me to a lot of different styles. I had like the punk rocker guys and like the classic rock guys, and then you had like the jam band guys, and it teaches you to sort of really learn how to listen. That I think is a lost art for a lot of modern players, where they're just kind of in their own world, and they're not thinking about, well, how does this sound, to the audience, or how does this work with what the guitar player is doing. And at an early age, I was forced to do that because I was not always playing material that I was entirely familiar with. I was kind of learning as I was going along, and that taught me a lot about how music works, or how I think music should work.
Did you play a lot of covers, or did you write a lot of original music? Like, what was that like for you?
Most of the musicians I worked with wanted to do covers, and we would play like Sweet Sixteens and whatnot. And but I was always writing. I always had ideas for songs, and and again, that's kind of what pushed me off the drum set. Um, the idea, you're trying to convey an idea for a song, and you're behind the drums, and you're just like singing a melody, and you have no notes behind it. It's harder to get your point across. So I think that's what kind of spurred me off the drum stool.
Yeah. And so with the writing, where did you tell me kind of about finding your voice through writing early on as well? Like, what were those songs like for you? Was it about love and loss of love and other things that you figure out in high school and all of that, or where did you kind of get some of that inspiration?
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, even when I was before I even started on the drums. So I mean, I'm talking when I was 8 years old. I was a weird kid, and I gravitated towards like this, like darker, like even though it was before my time, like 80s post-punk new wave stuff. I was obsessed with The Chauffeur by Duran Duran. I mean, I knew every single word and I would sing it. I would sing it in the shower. I'd sing it while I was walking down the street. And that was kind of my gateway drug to a style or a sound that I think I've carried with me my whole life. In high school, as many high school musicians and singers do, I got very into the Doors. And I think that the Doors, even though they were a late 60s band, I think they have a lot of similarities with that early 80s darker stuff. Um, some similar themes, the way the lyrics are, the way the vocal melodies work, and a lot of keyboard stuff going on. So that was kind of my thing. And as far as my early songs, I mean, there most of it was nonsense. I mean, a girl that I would like, or something I saw on TV. Um, nothing really that deep yet. It took a while before the lyrical concepts would sort of percolate in a meaningful fashion.
Yeah, yeah. And were there bands that like you went to concerts of early on that made you kind of want to, kind of? I know you obviously started performing when you were really young, like for family and everything, but for made you want to perform on stage and what have you.
Well, I mean, my first concert was a Duran Duran concert,
Okay.
so I saw that and I was blown away. But the first band I ever saw on stage was their opening act, and that was Erasure,
Oh
which
wow. Okay.
another incredible vocalist. Um, so yeah, I saw that and I was just, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I think I can do this.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe I could sort of do this. Um, and I kind of took a circuitous route to being a front man, but the front man was, I always had my eye on that position as the front man. Um, when you're in high school, you have a lot of hangups and insecurities, and I was a really insecure kid. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. So the drums were a great vehicle for me to be able to be on stage and to be performing, but I didn't have to like deal with the scrutiny of being right in people's faces just yet. And I don't think I was mentally ready for that type of experience. So
Yeah.
it helped me in a way.
Yeah, and obviously it takes, building that confidence to step into that frontman spot and be in people's faces. So, like, tell me kind of about that process for you of kind of overcoming those challenges from high school. I mean, some of it's probably natural growth, but what was your process like?
I mean, it was really slow going. It took time because I basically picked up bass a lot later than I think most professional musicians start. I think most professional musicians start on their instrument about 11, 12 years old, maybe 13. I picked up the bass when I was 20, 21.
Mhm.
So everybody kind of had a head start on me. So now I'm fronting a band and I'm being asked to sing and play this instrument that is not my first instrument. I'm not entirely comfortable with. So it took a while before I was able to like move the way I wanted to on stage and sort of try to connect with people the way I wanted to. And it's really it's an entirely different skill, like stagecraft. It's
Mhm.
really underrated, and I've been watching some recent performers on SNL where
Yeah.
they feature a lot of newer performers, and stagecraft has been lost because these performers, a lot of them they don't have it. I mean, they're on TV, they're selling millions of records, but the charisma isn't there. Just there's no connection. They're very just, I don't know. There are no, I don't see any Robert Plants or Mick Jaggers on TV.
Yeah, yeah. There's not a lot of new in that area, right? So
Something exciting, something a little bit dangerous. You don't know what's going to happen. It's all so choreographed and so pre-planned and so safe.
yeah.
Um, and with my band, I've said from the beginning, from when we first, um, put our first single out, um, that I wanted to try to bring a little bit of that mysterious, dark energy back to rock and roll.
So how do you do that on stage? What does that look like for you
Well,
to bring that danger?
that's a great question. It's a combination of things. I mean, it's the way you move on stage. I think that because of the sort of the times in which we live, male sexuality has been kind of become a bit taboo for a lot of artists because the whole toxic masculinity thing, you don't want to come across as this person who might create a Me Too situation. So I mean, I think you have to sort of be unafraid. I know that I'm not a sleazeball, okay? But there's nothing wrong with being sexy and acting sexual on stage and having songs that talk about sexual things. I think that's okay. I mean, the female performers are certainly doing it. There's no shortage
Yeah,
of that. But I think there are too many guys just on stage, just sort of staring at their feet, and there's a place for that as well. The ultra sensitive male thing is cool, but I think there's also a place for like the Mick Jaggers of the world. I think people can be moved by it. It can be exciting. So it's to give you a more direct answer. It's everything. It's the way you move, it's the way you express the lyrics, it's the way you sing, and it's the banter between the songs as well. Um, it's the way you present your entire piece of art. I think it's all every aspect of it plays a role.
yeah, yeah. So how much of yourself would you say you put into your music? Do you feel like you're kind of giving of yourself in your lyrics, that you're kind of making, or that it's more making a persona on stage? Where's that kind of line for you?
Um, I think that there's a lot of myself in my lyrics. I think it's very hard to write and sing passionately about something that doesn't come from some type of personal experience. Now, as a songwriter, I think I've made the mistake in the past of being too personal, where like the entire song is like an in joke that nobody might understand. So I've tried to take my personal experiences and find universal elements in them that will sort of, I hope, people will be able to relate to on some level. So there's kind of an inner story, and then there's an outward exterior element to the story as well. So I hope to try to have both of those um those ingredients in the songs.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so the Ritualists. I mean, we have Jeffrey on keyboards, David on
Mhm.
guitars, and Ignacio on bass, and then Eric on drums. And so, tell me kind of about the dynamic of your band and how you. I know some of your members you found on like Craigslist, and some you kind of formed the band together. Tell me how the band got started for you guys.
Okay, well, Ignacio is no longer on the bass.
Oh,
So
okay, never mind.
I'm the bassist, not your fault. I'm the bassist. I've been the bassist on every record, but Iggy was in the band as a touring bassist, and he worked with us as an engineer on an album as well. Um, how the band came together? Yes, David answered a Craigslist ad. Um, Jeffrey, I was lucky to have met he was the brother of someone I became friends with. I didn't even know he existed until my friend came to see my band, and we were talking after the show. And I was like, I said, I'm really looking for a keyboardist. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. My brother plays the keyboards. So that's how Jeff came into the fold. And Eric, I've known for a while. We've been in different bands um, in the sort of Lower East Side family. and I thought he was the right guy for this gig because of his ability to play with a lot of tracks. And the newer Ritualist stuff has a lot going on tracks wise. Not fake vocal tracks or anything, but layers of synths and arpeggiators and whatnot. And he's really great with that, and it adds a new element to the sound, I think.
Is it difficult to reproduce that like in a live environment, or how do you adjust and kind of translate your music into that?
It can be if you don't have the right people.
Yeah,
If you have the right, I mean, it's really on the drummer. I mean,
yeah,
if the drummer can keep up, and keep on the beat with the tracks, it can sound glorious. But if not, it can be a complete disaster. So, I'm lucky to have somebody who does a good job with it live, and I think it works.
yeah. And it was 2019 that you formed.
Um, 2018.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff was recorded in 2018. We signed our first deal in 2019, and the record came out.
Okay. So tell me about making, Painted People. Like what was our process like going into the studio for your first album?
So the process for the first album was, well, the only current member of the band who was working with me at the time was Jeffrey. Um, and we basically had a hodgepodge of songs that we recorded in different places over the span of a few months. And we had our manager who was sort of shopping them around. And one of the songs caught his attention, and that was the song
Ice
Ice
Flower,
Flower.
right?
Yeah. And that caught on, and we sort of built the whole first record around Ice Flower. And they made a video for it and whatnot. And we weren't really expected even to be part of the Out of Line family. We were sort of presented to them on a compilation with a bunch of other artists, and the style of music for that label isn't really our style. And the head of the label just fell in love with that song. So it really gave us the opportunity to break into the industry, and then have all of you wonderful people get to hear the band for the first time. Um, and I mean, Ice Flower, as far as um, recording, was really it's one of the hardest bass lines I've ever written, and it's one of the hardest songs to sing. So it was really a challenge, but I like challenges, and at the end of the day, it's fun, and I was really pleasantly surprised with the way the song ended up sounding at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you mentioned the video. I know you got a decent budget for the video. Like
Mhm.
how did that come about? Did it what is was it did it translate the way you wanted it to? There's a lot of Roland and Ice Flower.
Um, well, the video is somewhat heartbreaking to me, actually, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's been long enough now where I can say this. Um, the video was everything was done by the label, but we were working with someone at the time who sent the song out to a few different video producers, I guess, and one of them came back with, and I had to send my lyrics, and they came back with this synopsis for their video, and my response was, did they even read my lyrics? Because this had nothing to do with the song. Oh no, it's going to be great. It's going to be really artsy and strange and weird. And I was like, I love professional wrestling as much as the next guy. I think it's really cool. But when I hear the Ritualists and I hear this song and like, look at me, like, do I look like a wrestler? I mean, and I thought that the label had wanted the video. Um, the label had thought we wanted the video. It turned out someone we were working with really wanted that video to be made that way, and it came out, and it kind of upset everyone in a way. Now, I think the video is shot beautifully. I have no problems with that. It looks great, and I've come to peace with it now. But it has really nothing to do with the song. And I was asked in the press releases to kind of explain the video in terms of ice flower, and I came up with some
You had to make something up.
insane. Yes, I completely just made up the I would have to actually I can't even remember what I said. Something about corporatism, and I mean it had nothing to do with this, but I had to make it sound slick, and I found out later that that was really a sticking point with the label. The fact that that video was made, they had some issues with that.
So you didn't even get to work with the director at all on it, or any vision. Like there, it's just some back and forth and crossfire that you know, got that made.
No, and I was
Oh,
told, oh, they may because it was shot in Germany, and
mhm.
I
Wow.
was told, oh, they might fly you out there to make an appearance in your video, and I said, okay,
Trip
and
to
I never
Germany,
heard from
sure.
them. Yeah, then they sent me this video with these big dudes like beating each other up, and the one wrestler was using the song as his entrance music. He asked if he could do that. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Um, but yeah, not a great representation of what the band is all about. But I mean, rock bands make strange videos all the time.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
No. Well, you know better. You're in the video, so with your newest single. So I imagine that one you had a little bit more involvement in.
Yes, yes. We wanted to make like I mean, the song I think is a dance sort of party song, but there's a darkness there as well. So I wanted to try to capture, a night out in the Lower East Side with the Ritualists. And so you had the performance, and then you have like the after party where we went to Vaughn. They were kind enough, and the club, I should say, Berlin, also kind enough to allow us to film. That Russian guy did the video. He shot it, did a great job, and we looked at the material afterwards, and I said, this needs something else. I think because I feel like the verses, it's almost like I'm having a somewhat aggressive conversation with someone. They're a bit conversational, and I'd like something that's a little bit more intimate. And I was thinking of that video, One Thing Leads to Another. Is it
Mhm.
where the lead singer is bouncing around in a hallway that looks kind of like a maze? And I was like, I could see me doing something like that for this. And so we went and we shot it, and we found a hallway that kind of framed the color suit I was wearing. And yeah, and I was happy with the result. I think it was a lot of fun. And I think that is a good representation of, the band.
Yeah. Yeah. So before diving into the new album a little bit more, I want to take one step back and talk a little
Okay.
bit about Baroque and Bleeding, because
Right.
you got to work with Bueller from the Psychedelic Furs. He produced
Yes.
that album, and I kind of, I mean, I can see a connection there. So tell me about how that came about, and I mean, did you get to choose your producer for that album? I know it was a pandemic album also, so I got questions about that.
Oh, sure, man. Yeah, no, we were thrilled. So after Out of Line, we signed with Suite 484, who were great, and they had this amazing studio in Times Square. And the pandemic hit, and I would drive in every day, and it looked like a scene out of Vanilla Sky. The Times Square was completely
Oh my God.
empty. Parked right in front of the studio, in front of all the huge billboards in Times Square. The police were there, like, just do whatever you want. They didn't care. Got out of my car and just recorded every day. And I mean, was a lot of that was a lot of me, because our drummer at the time was kind of phasing himself out of the band. So I played the drums and I played the bass on that record. And while we were making the record, my keyboardist Jeffrey just cold emailed Ed and sent him our first record and said, "Hey, we just did this record, and we need somebody to work with. We're starting to record, blah blah." And Ed wrote him back and was like, "I love the sound of it," and we worked the thing out with the label. And Ed jumped on as a co-producer, and he mixed it, which was cool. And I really love Ed from his work with Suede, one of my favorite bands, and Pulp. He did his and hers with Pulp. So I was like, this is great. And of course, I was really excited to hear how he was going to EQ and mix my vocals, and he did not disappoint. I was very, very happy with with Ed's work on the record. I think he did exactly what I thought he was going to do.
Oh, so what did he bring to the album? Like, did he bring stuff out of you that you know, like wasn't there, challenge you in different ways?
Yeah, I think he cut. He was pretty fearless in his in his willingness to just discard something. I just heard a strange sound. I don't know what's going on with my computer today, but anyway, um, yeah, I mean, cut a solo here, cut out a drum fill. What are you doing here? This sounds like jazz. Don't do that. And yeah, so that was cool. And just the way the effects that he used on the voice, his choices of vocal takes were really, I think, spot on tonally. And so yeah, and I think he really worked well with Jeffrey, the keyboardist, because Ed is a keyboard guy.
Mm,
So I think the synths on Baroque and Bleeding really increased in the colors and flavors that we and the textures we captured there. And that was the first record we did with David Andriana on guitar. So he tracked all the guitars, and that was a great bonus because David is really really easy to work with, and his ear is so great. You play a progression for him like one time, and he's got it. And that when you have somebody in the band who's such a quick study, it frees up so much time to just experiment and throw ideas back and forth. He'd go into the studio, he didn't have to worry about his timing or bending a note out of tune or anything. So it was really I think the band took a much needed step forward with the whole record.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Did it get the release that you wanted? I mean, I know I talked to a lot of bands during COVID, and like albums got shelved or they couldn't tour behind it because the whole COVID thing and all of that. Like, did that work out okay?
Well, we got the double whammy from COVID. So um, Painted People came out, and within a few months, COVID hit, and we could not tour. I
Mm,
believe the label wanted to bring us over there to play some shows, and all of that was scrapped. And we had nothing to do, so we put out like another video for "On with the Painted People," our song, and then it was like, I mean, what else can we do? Let's make another record.
yeah,
And the problem was the vinyl pressers were so backed up because everybody was doing the same thing. And I think whereas the back end portion of with the Painted People was impacted, the initial release, as you said, with Baroque and Bleeding, it was very hard to be aggressive with the release. So we did our album release show for Baroque and Bleeding at the Bowery Electric, and they sold tickets beforehand and had everybody in the audience had to sit down at like cocktail tables with plexiglass. And this is usually a standing room only type venue. It was
yeah.
surreal. It was actually really cool. I was very happy with the way the night went down, but it was just a different time. Like you couldn't market things and tour the way you wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know how hard it was for so many bands. And I mean, I remember the first show I went to back when bands started being able to perform. Like, I drove hundreds of miles away to see it and paid far too much just to see live music. And they had
Yeah.
like it was an outdoor Palm Springs show at Palm Springs where they had like circles that you buy a circle and they're each like 6 feet apart or something like that. And it was just like, this is not how concerts are supposed to be. I should have saved my money and just waited. But you just miss
Yeah.
live music so much.
Yeah, we were so bummed out. David and I started doing these shows with a promoter friend of ours who worked at a place called Marshall Stack in New York, which is a little bar. And his name was John. John Mato called me up and he said, I want to do live music. And I was like, you don't even normally have live music. What are you talking about? He's like, well, We set up the outdoor seating, which is legal. Okay. We have space heaters out there, and the bar has to remain empty. He's like, so you'll set up at the bar, and we have a window looking out to the sidewalk, and you guys can do like acoustic sets, and people can hang out outside and socially distance and have a drink and watch music. And so we did that like pretty much monthly for a time. And I think it was the first venue in New York to bring music back. They're making a documentary about it,
Mm.
actually. And it was a lot of fun. And we did a combination of cover songs that we loved along with songs from the new record. You know,
Yeah. Interesting time, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
people wanted their live music, which was cool to see.
oh yeah. Yeah. When it came back, it was back. So it was
Hmm.
great. Yeah. So new album is Too Pure to Cure. It comes out April 22nd. So it's about like self-acceptance and like this digital age of absurdity. Like tell me kind of about your writing of this album and what you were wanting to kind of put out there.
Well, I mean, the album title is also one of the songs on the record called
Mhm.
"Too Pure to Cure," which you've alluded to, which is basically, you know, it's so easy and like I think a shortcut to thinking to just say something like, oh, F you, I'm an artist and you just have to deal with it and that's it. And I think it's more like for me, it's at this point, it's like a shoulder shrug. It's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am, this is how it is, and this is how it's always been. And there are people like this out there, and they're all different types of people. And I think the cure part is sort of these qualifications society puts on us and we put on ourselves, things you should be doing or shouldn't be doing, in terms of lifestyle choices, career choices, relationship choices, what have you. And I don't think that being artistic is something that needs to be trained out, or a dream or a fantasy that one needs to give up. You can do this and have a happy life. There will be
Mm.
sacrifices that you'll make, but people make sacrifices to do all kinds of things in life, not just art. um, is the music industry a fun industry? It's a very difficult industry, and people are horrible in the music industry, but people are also horrible in the legal profession, in the medical profession, in the insurance profession. So yeah, you just hope that you can move people with your artwork and get your message across. And I think that's sort of what the song "Too Pure to Cure" is about. And that theme has come back in my writing on a few different songs throughout the years, and a few of the songs on this record carry that theme. But this is in no way a concept album, so I cover a lot of different bases on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the song "A Thousand Tears" at the end. I think that's a pretty solid
Well,
one. Yeah. I mean,
thank you.
yeah. When you're putting together the album, like in terms of song placement, like how do you land certain songs in certain places?
It's a huge debate amongst the band members and the producer and the record label and the PR agent and
Everybody's
everyone.
got an opinion.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion. I mean, that's part of what you know better is about. Um, why we put it there, I think it has that ending of the song where it's a repeated sort of little bit of a jam there. I think the song too is kind of an outlier stylistically. To me, it sounds a little bit more 60s. I
Hmm.
would describe it as like, what if the Smiths were to do a 60s song? I mean, that's kind of the vibe. And that's not really our signature style. But it is, I do like to do that croony vocal thing. And I think it's kind of a fun song, which I think all albums need, one or two songs where the band doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think that's one of those songs.
Yeah. yeah, for sure. And so on this album, the Mario McNulty produced it, and Mario's
Correct.
worked with Bowie and Prince, right?
Yes.
Did you get
Yeah.
stories out of Mario about working with
Those 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 slouches.
I know little name Bowie and
Yeah.
Prince, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
little known artist named Prince. Yes, he did. He told me stuff, a lot of, some stuff that I have to keep confidential. But as far as, I mean, I'm a Bowie fanatic.
yeah.
So
I knew
I
you
was
were a fan.
yeah, I was asking him all about David's process and the way he handled things, and um you know the, all of these artists, at least as you meet more and more people in the music industry, there's an image that a lot of these artists have, as being like party machines or maniacs, and I'm sure they have their maniacal moments. Let's not kid ourselves. However, they also were very driven, and that is the constant I hear from all of the successful artists that I adore. That when I meet people who've worked with them, they all say that about them: professional, um, driven, focused, and Bowie and Prince, from what I've heard, were very much in that sort of vein.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine being such a big Bowie fan that it was, I mean, you just wanted to pick his brain all, all the time about Bowie, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Bowie worked with incredible, incredible musicians. I mean, he had his choice cuts from any genre, and he could basically do any genre he wanted to, and it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite concert I've been to was a Bowie celebration back in 2016 after he passed. And it was led by Gary Oldman. And
Um,
yeah, yeah.
my
And
favorite actor, by the way. So
oh, very cool. I got to interview him at that show and be
no
around.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Got to talk to him, and there were like 75 artists just paying celebration to Bowie, and some people who had been in his band. I got to talk to,
Mhm.
I interviewed people all night at that show, and it was just incredible. It was just magic, and I never got to see Bowie live, but that was almost the next best thing was
Yeah,
being in that room.
that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, a lot of they did something during the pandemic as well, where a bunch of Mike Garson organized something where all of these artists did their favorite Bowie songs, and it was really, really interesting. If you haven't seen it, you should seek it out. I'll send you a link to it if I can find it.
Yeah, yeah. If you find that, I'd love to check it out. I've seen some others float around, and I'm like, I want to go to them, but then I'm like, oh, is it going to be as cool as this one? Well, I set these bars, and sometimes I'm like, it's not going to be as cool as this one thing that I saw, and I'm like, so either go to it or not. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe you have to allow for yourself to be a little bit disappointed once in a while.
I do. Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite concert that you've been to?
Well, man, I probably Suede.
Okay.
I saw Suede on this past tour, and it was really, really good. I mean, they're one of the best live bands I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, Brett Anderson is an incredible frontman, and his voice is still in top shape, and they play a different set list every night, so you could see them like 4 nights in a row, and it's a completely different show every time.
How do bands do that? I don't even know how they do that because you got to
Neither
learn
do
the
I.
songs and yeah.
They just don't. They do not care, man. They just go for it, and if it works, it works,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't, they just move on to the next song.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. Uh, so winding out as the album is about to come out, you played Wicked Lady the other night. How was that show?
Mhm.
Did you incorporate some of the new stuff into your set?
Absolutely, it was almost entirely new material,
Hmm,
and
nice.
we love Our Wicked Lady. Our next show is going to be on March 15th at the Bowery Electric, and it's a
Mhm.
semi-regular party I do called Glamour Puss, where it's a very glam rock heavy night. I have DJs, I have a projectionist Hypno Doll, and she does all of these wild psychedelic projections, and it's four bands, and that's at the Battery Electric on Saturday, March 15th. And I think we're coming back to Our Wicked Lady in the summer on a Saturday, June 7th, which that place in the summer is great with the rooftop and everything. It's a cool. Have you ever been there?
I haven't. No, no.
Mhm. Oh, it's worth checking
Yeah.
out. So, I mean, so is Barry Electric. I mean, they're cool
Yeah.
places.
Good places, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the Bay Area on the, out in California. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I love
Do you
going
ever
to
get
show.
out? Do
What was that?
you ever get out to New York?
I haven't in 20, I haven't been there in like 20 years. It's been too long. I need to get back out
Yeah.
there again sometime,
And the
but it's,
changeover is quick, so it probably look very different from what you remember,
I
sadly.
imagine. I
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah. No, that's very cool. Well, Christian, I want to thank you for taking the time today, and glad we were able to make it happen. And I wish you luck with the new album coming out and everything, and the shows playing around it. Uh, keep it up,
Thank
man.
you so much for having me, Steve. This was great.
Yeah,
And I'm
for
glad
sure.
I was able to get the link working and everything together for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll have a good rest of your day then, okay? And hopefully,
You,
we'll be hearing good things from you soon.
you too. Thanks a lot.
That was my interview with Christian Dryden from the Ritualists here on Concert Pipeline. And that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. Have a couple of stories to wind us out today here on the program. First up is about Bono's story of surrender. It's going to be turned into a documentary for Apple TV Plus. It'll also be released on Apple Vision Pro, marking the first feature-length film available in that format. That is cool. The Apple Vision Pro piece. I mean, I tested one of the Apple Vision Pros when I went into an Apple store last year, I think it was, and the visuals are just incredible. So to be able to see a movie that was made for that platform in that, I'd be super interested in that. Stories of Surrender. I have the book that I got from the library, and that I read. It looks like almost half of it, a third of it. Let's call it two-fifths of the book. You see some chew marks for those that are watching on YouTube on the book. My dog was a puppy, and so she was chewing on the book, and bought us the book. Uh, she didn't chew on any cheaper books. She chewed on a big hardcover book that cost me a pretty penny to replace with the library. And I didn't finish the book, obviously, but I'd be a lot more interested in the visuals aspect of the story than just reading the actual story. I got a little bored at some point in it, I think. So it's going to be coming. Did I say when it's going to be coming? I don't know that it says right now, but documentary set for release on May 30th on Apple TV Plus. Press release adds that the film pulls back the curtain on a remarkable life and the family, friends, and faith that have challenged and sustained him, revealing personal stories about his journey as a son, father, husband, activist, and of course, rock star. So if you're interested, check that out. All right. Got a story about the Sex Pistols. Steve Jones, the other Steve Jones, says it wasn't worth asking John Lydon about joining the Sex Pistols reunion. I don't think he was interested. The band performed with Lydon in 2008. That was the last time they performed with him. They headed out on a UK comeback tour last autumn with Frank Carter stepping in as frontman. It's followed two intimate gigs at London's Bush Hall, where they played Nevermind the Bollocks in full. They've since announced further live appearances for this year, including Download Festival and the Teenage Cancer Trust Series at London's Royal Albert Hall. And then Steve Jones told NME that the Sex Pistols would be hitting the road in the US. So apparently they're going to be coming around here. And I don't know the last time the Sex Pistols played in the US. I think it's been quite a while. I do remember, man, it was like 2014 maybe or something when Concert Pipeline started up. And I remember that they were doing shows. Maybe it was even earlier than that, when I was doing Concert Pipeline as a TV show years ago. But I remember reaching out to their publicist and emailing and being like, "Hey, I'd like to interview Steve Jones. Hey, I'm Steve Jones too. That'd be cool." But never got that interview. It didn't happen. All right. Ozzy Osbourne is starting to get in the gym again, for final Black Sabbath gig. He's the real life Iron Man. The Prince of Darkness recently shared that Parkinson's disease has left him unable to walk. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be walking at these shows that he's doing. But this comes after the start of the month that saw the legendary metal band announce details of what will be their last ever live show taking place in Birmingham on July 5th. I talked about that on the last episode of Concert Pipeline. There's a lot of artists that are playing, and he's looking to build up his strength and he's starting to return to the gym. He just wants to be able to. I think he needs to work up his voice a little bit too. I don't think he's doing super well. But these comments are made by producer Andrew Watt during a new interview on Sirius XM's The Howard Stern Show. Watt, who worked with him on his last two studio albums, shed light on his current health status, saying he's okay. It's just his body is not doing what he wants it to do all the time. But I talked to him a couple of days ago, and he's like starting to get in the gym again, and little by little, get himself ready for this last concert. He's a real life Iron Man. Nothing has happened to his voice. His voice is as good as it ever has been. Oh, that's good to know. And he said, not okay. Wait, the update comes shortly after the frontman shared an insight into his well-being recently. He said that his ailing health has meant that he will be making fewer onstage appearances at the gig than some would hope. I'm not planning on doing a set with Black Sabbath, but I am doing little bits and pieces with them. I'm doing what I can where I feel comfortable, he said in an interview with Sirius XM earlier this month. Trying to get back on my feet. When you get up in the morning, you just jump out of bed. I have to balance myself, but I'm not dead. I'm still actively doing things. Wow, that's really surprising, because I don't know that people know that he's not going to really be doing a set with Black Sabbath. I mean, they announced the show and it says Black Sabbath and it says Ozzy Osbourne, which to me reads there's a Black Sabbath set and then there's a separate Ozzy Osbourne set for his solo music, and I was super stoked on that concert, and I don't know. I wouldn't be as interested in it if I knew that he might just show up and jump in a little bit, and and I get it, because again, it is tough for him. He is not in a great place right now, and he just wants to play like a last show. He wants to close it out on his terms, pretty much, but how much can you do? And Black Sabbath, he's the backbone of Black Sabbath. So how is Black Sabbath going to do a set without him? I don't know these things. I guess we're going to find out in July, or as it becomes closer to that show. So we'll see. Fans respond after Liam Gallagher teases Oasis reunion set length. The singer offered a blunt response to a fan asking about the upcoming shows. Since the tour is announced at the end of summer, fans are just like chomping at it, trying to get everything they can out of it. First leg of the tour set to kick off across the UK and Ireland later this summer. Fans have been debating how long each set will last for. The frontman has gotten involved in the discussion and posted an update jokingly, providing an exact plan. On Twitter, X, a fan got in touch and wrote, Liam, some people believe Oasis gigs will last only 1 hour. Tell them you were joking. And in response, he said, just under 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Although it seems like he's joking with the reply, that hasn't stopped some fans taking to the reply section to urge the band to stretch out the set more, especially with it being the first tour since 2009. I'm coming all the way back to Manchester from New Zealand for this. I hope the 59 minutes and 59 seconds is worth it, one wrote, while another simply quipped, don't even joke, lad. You're not going to get an honest answer out of them. If they even hit the stage together, is going to be a miracle. So good luck. If you want to see some Oasis, be happy if you get Wonderwall, I guess, huh? That album's so good. What's the Story, Morning Glory? Oh, I grew up on that. That was one of my first albums, and I just loved it. Okay. Warped Tour, Vans Warped Tour has been doing this thing where they announce handful of bands every day for 30 days. And then apparently they still have some blacked out spots on the lineup for bands that they have to announce. They put the lineups for each of the 3 weekends that they're doing Warped Tour online, all in one place, so you can kind of see a status of who's playing what show so far, but blacked out certain spots, like it looks like with a Sharpie for bands that they just haven't been able to confirm yet, but are all but confirmed. And so the Long Beach show, I'll tell you, who I would be interested in going if I weren't already going to Colorado pretty much the same week as Warped Tour, and going to LA in April. Like, I would be really interested in going to this Warped Tour. Did I say Warped Tour in April? I mean AC/DC. Okay. All right. So looking at some of the highlights, at least for me, of Warped Tour Long Beach, Body Count, which is it Ice Cube or Ice T? It's one of the Ices. That's his band. I saw them at Warp years ago backstage. I took some pictures of them against their tour bus. CKY is playing. I dig their stuff. Cobra Starship. Let me see. Dropkick Murphys. Who else is playing? Falling in Reverse, 4 Years Strong. Uh, um yeah, ton of bands. Just less than Jake. That would be really cool to see them live in a Warped Tour setting. Uh, and Of Mice and Men. Let me see here. The All American Rejects. Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. That's a must-have for a Warped Tour. Just every pop punk Peloton ride I do, it's got to have Red Jumpsuit Apparatus in it. Let's see, The Wonder Years, and We the Kings, and a bunch of other bands. So that's the Long Beach one, which again would be super cool to be able to just experience Warped Tour one more time. But I don't think it's going to happen for me. So, all right. And the last story for the program, Dave Grohl. Of course, we try and do Dave Grohl story when we can at the end. He had signed a guitar and it raised over $50,000 for the LA fire relief at a charity auction. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that he didn't just sign a guitar. He wrote the lyrics, handwritten lyrics to the Foo Fighters songs "Rescued" and "These Days" on the guitar. So line by line lyrics in Dave Grohl's handwriting on the guitar all the way through, and that's pretty cool. And it made $50,800, which is 25 times its $2,000 estimate. There were other items that were sold in the auction. He also contributed a Crown Royal cape that he wore for a 2023 Super Bowl commercial, which went for $7,600, a little bit more affordable, I guess. Huh? And Beastie Boys, there were tracksuits that they wore on their 2004 tour. They went for $38,000. Shirley Manson's dress from Garbage's "I Think I'm Paranoid" video went for $31,000. Hayley Williams' outfits from the Paramore's "This Is Why" video and a gig opening for Taylor Swift's Eras tour went for $16,000 and $13,000 respectively. So good stuff. Trying to raise money to build back up Los Angeles. All right, that is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. I do have a band interview lined up for next week as of right now, so we should have another show coming at you soon. For all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.